Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. I am in my wizard, my Jedi Knight setup here, my getup. It's a wet and cold and miserable Irish morning here, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Just recording this before I go off for the weekend. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like a normal Irish day, to be honest, just cold and wet and grey. But there you are. Today we're going to be looking at the best epics for Arena in Raid Shadow Legends. I did a guide on 3v3 Tag Arena getting up to Gold 1 for sort of late game free-to-play low spend players a couple of days ago, and you guys really enjoyed it. I'm glad there's a lot of work went into it, and there's more stuff coming. But I said, you know what, this video today can be on the epics, which will help early game brand new players and also even late game players, because a lot of these epics still remain viable even in that late game, and I actually run into a lot of them all the time as well, pushing up in Arena. So I want to go over them today and give you a hand. So without any further ado, let us dive in. So I'm gonna go do the top 20. I started with top 10 and then there were like 10 honorable mentions, so we're going for 20. In 20th place, Andrissia. I'm putting Andrissia in here. She is a brand new Void Lego. You guys can't see it. She's got 15 reviews right now. Barely anyone has played her. So they're kind of middling ratings. I think she's got good potential here, though. I think she's got good potential. I'm putting her in 20th place because I haven't actually got to see any gameplay of her yet. I think Ash has just put out a video, so I'm going to be watching that after recording this video. But what does she do that I think is so good? Couple of things. Number one, really nice base stats, but she's going to come in as an AoE attack that decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 2 turns. So effectively, in Arena, this is for the most part going to be a full cleanse, a full purge of the enemy team's buffs. It's also going to do probably decent damage based on defense with a good cooldown. And then, whenever she takes a turn, she puts ally protection for 2 turns on the ally with the lowest max HP. Won't be placed on this champion. Also gives her strengthen and increased defense for 2 turns. So basically, you have her go into your team. You have her really fast, make her really fast, very accurate. She comes in. She's going to strip off all the enemy buffs, strip off immunity, have a chance to strip off stone skin, shield set, anything like that. And then also give 50% damage reduction, basically, to your squishiest member, to your nuker, to help them stay alive if the enemy hits back. She can easily tank up that damage at those buffs. And she comes back around then round 2, and she can stun a target, or she can stun the target for 2 turns if they don't have any active buffs. So the idea would be that she strips the enemy team, makes your nuker survive, your nuker goes and kills them, they get their revive off, and then she comes in and just stuns their nuker for 2 turns if she doesn't outright kill them. So I think Andrissia is really good. Though, like I said, she's at number 20 on this list right now because I haven't actually gotten to see her in action. So it's kind of just judging her on paper on that one. Now, a champion that we know for a fact is really good, number 19, is Gorgrab. Gorgrab, very simply, is mini Arbiter, okay? He's got 23% speed aura. He can fill turn meter and put increased attack for 2 turns. He has an AoE revive with the heal. He can actually remove a random buff with his A1, so he's fantastic. Now, unfortunately, his base speed is really bad, so that is a big downside to him. But before you get Arbiter, this guy's like the next best thing. This guy's the next best thing. He brings all the things she brings, but just worse. And that is why he's number 19, is that early game, even mid-game Tag Arena, he can be really good. But once you push past mid-game in Classic Arena and mid-game in Tag Arena, this guy becomes effectively useless. He's completely outclassed by Arbiter, and he just can't keep up. But early game, this guy absolutely needs a shout-out. Next up, we have, in the Ogren Tribes, one of my favorite epic champions, and that's Ugo. And I think she's also really good here in the Arena. So she has an AoE move that puts decreased defense and can also place block buffs on the enemy. That becomes basically almost 100% chance. I think it is 100% chance, slightly lower, 95% chance, 100% with Sniper to put block buffs on the enemy team. So this is one of the best AoE decreased defense moves in the game. This is top tier for Hydra. She's amazing for Hydra. If you get Ugo, you will build her out. and she's great for this arena as well. Really nice to stop things like Skull Crown getting buffs on. If their team does cut in on you, which you hope doesn't happen, but if it does stop them getting buffs, which is nice. Then she also has this potential revive, which is great for arena as well with her passive. So she's got amazing base stats, like insanely good. And if she survives, like if you don't go first, or if the enemy team cuts in and they do manage to kill you, and if Ugo stays alive, she gets increased speed, block damage, and then she can potentially revive everyone with half health, half turn meter with Ugo's brew. So she does a bunch of really good stuff. I think the downside is that you'd hopefully just kill them and block buffs wouldn't matter. Or again, you'd hopefully just kill them and then this stuff wouldn't matter. But she does a lot of stuff there that I think is very valuable. And yeah, I consider her to be really good. Another new champion's actually up next then, and that is Filja, or Filia. I'm not sure how you say that. Does anyone know what the proper pronunciation would be? Is there a proper pronunciation in a fantasy game? Is it all made up? Who knows? Kyle. But yeah, Filja. I think she's really good, especially early game. She is like an early game amazing nuker. So she's got fantastic speed, crit damage. Her base attack's a little bit low. But I think the thing that makes her so good is this Boon Chant. If she has 2 or fewer buffs at the start of the turn, puts increased attack and increased crit damage on this champion for 1 turn. This means that you don't need a champion like Arbiter or Goregrab. You don't need a champion that puts increased attack on your team. That's amazing. That is so useful. She gives it to herself for free and crit damage as well, so she can come in and smack. Then her A3 does a big AoE smack. This fills her turn meter by 15% per enemy hit. So if she crits all 4 enemies of on the enemy team in arena, she gives herself 60% turn meter. Then she can come around with this A2, which hits really hard and can fully deplete a target's turn meter. So yeah, I think Filja is actually extremely good. Again, she's more of an early game nuker, but even in some mid game, possibly moving into some late game teams, she could still be a really strong nuker there because of the turn meter and turn meter depletion. And yeah, just the fact that you can go in without an Arbiter. I think that's really good, and she can still do her thing. Next up, I have my list on my phone. I'm a professional. Next up, maybe you'll be surprised I ranked this guy so low, but Seeker. I mean, relatively low. All of these champions are extremely good, if I haven't made this clear. Seeker, old school, fantastic arena champion. The thing that makes him so good, in my opinion, in arena is Tailwind. 30% turn meter fill with a 50% increase attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. Grants an extra turn. If you're going first in arena, this is just straight up better than Arbiter's move, right? Arbiter's move heals you when you're low on health, which is obviously extremely good, but if you're going first anyway, that doesn't matter. So he's doing the same thing as Arbiter going first, but he gets an extra turn as well, and he can provoke on his A1, which is excellent. So this is just a fantastic move for a early game arena player. He's pretty much one of the best epics you could possibly get before Arbiter. That turn meter fill is insane. There are honorable mentions here, guys. There are a few other epics that can do similar things, but just not quite as good. So I'm getting a bit warmer now. I can take this off. But like Runekeeper Darsduk in the Dwarves, he can do something very similar. Where is he? This guy, Dazdurk can do something similar. We've got Sachi in the Shadowkin can do something similar. A guy I actually really like, my girlfriend used him actually for a good while, York, Old Hermit York. He can do, again, something similar. It's only a 20% turn meter fill, but it's increased attack, and he brings a revive as well onto allies, which is really good. So there's a bunch of champions that do it well, but Seeker gives you the biggest bang for your buck with a turn meter, and he's also extremely viable late game, end game even, in Clan Boss. He's in some of the very, very best in Clan Boss team. And he might be in the best. I'm not sure if he's in the best Clan Boss team anymore, but he's way up there. Then he also has a great passive. Whenever he is hit with a crit, he puts increased defense on all allies and heals them a bit. He does bring ally defense in arena battles. So again, I think earlier in the game you can use him as an arena lead. I think though that as you go later into the game, this isn't really going to work. The meta is really about reaction accessories, which stop you from getting crit when you move into the late game. So I think he's really fallen off the meta in the late game. I feel like if you're going to get crit, you're just gonna die, which isn't that useful. And Kyoku has come in as a legendary who does this, but much, much better for endgame arena. But Seeker's still extremely, extremely good. Fantastic champion. Next up we have in the Orcs, we have Sandlash Survivor. Very unique passive on Sandlash Survivor. So she puts ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns when any ally's HP drops below 50%, and puts block damage on her, which means that she'll basically survive if they don't have any block buffs or buff stripping, and she really helps your allies survive as well. So you put her in like the last position on your team, and then when an AoE comes out, if the first person on your team drops below half health, ally protection goes on everyone, will help that ally potentially survive through the bottom half of their health, will help your other ally survive, she'll survive the AoE nuke. So that's basically what she does. She just helps you survive through that big opening nuke, which I think is useful. And then she's got a great A2, which hits hard and decreases enemy buffs by 1 turn. So I think that stuff together does combine to make her useful. Now, she is very, very slow, which is a bummer, but she does great damage, and that passive is unique. I do think that she's fallen off. I don't see her used as much. I actually do see her sometimes still in Arena. Some people use her, but I feel like she's a little bit hit or miss. There are ways to play around her a bit more than other champions, but she's still really good. Next up, again, people will be surprised I rank him so low. People will be surprised, but that's Deacon Armstrong. And really, reaction accessories is why I rank him low. But if you were earlier mid-game, this guy would jump way up the list. I'm sort of considering all parts of the game for ranking this list. Deacon is like the value champion. He brings you everything you need, right? So he's got a speed aura. Excellent for early game, right? Again, useless once you get to the mid-game or later, because Arbiters completely outclass it, and other champions like that. Then time compression. Fills ally turn meter, decreases enemy turn meter with an extra turn. Then he comes in with a 100% chance to decrease defense. He even has a leech in his A1, which isn't very useful for Arena, but it's worth mentioning. And he's got solid base stats as well. But yeah, Deacon, he gives you basically everything you need early game. Even with an Arbiter, when you get her, you can have Deacon running second. So Deacon will boost your turn meters more, and then decrease enemy turn meters and decrease defense. Then your nuker comes in. And hey, you know, normally you're bringing in early game, mid game, you're bringing in a champion just to do turn meter, and then another champion to do decreased defense, and then your nuker. This guy does the decreased defense and turn meter manipulation in 1. He's a 2-for-1 champion. So yeah, it kind of frees up an extra slot, which is fantastic. The reason I have him rated so low here is again because of reaction accessories, right? I find that this turn meter stuff is actually not as valuable when you move into the later game as it would be, because, you know, okay, yeah, he pushes their turn meter down, increases yours, decreases defense, you nuke them. Back in the olden times, that would have been amazing. You just won the fight, congrats. Nowadays, though, you know, going into the later game, you're going to hit reaction accessories, and suddenly all this turn meter gain has been useless. You go, oh, this has just meant that our critical hits were turned into normal hits. Well, that feels bad, and now we're going to get smashed. So yeah, that's why he's a bit lower down the list, but I still do think that he is extremely, extremely good. Next up, we have another champion who does this, again, in a similar way, a very interesting way, and that's Sylar. So Sylar, again, really good base stats. 105 base speed is amazing, and she has this lead in legs, decrease speed 30% on the enemy teams, and decrease their turn meter by 40%. So she's got the same problem that Deacon does. She's got the same problem. In fact, maybe Deacon should be 1 spot higher, because he does do a couple more things, but Sylar is also amazing. But if you ever are going up against enemies without reaction, you know, just it pushes them back so much. It's actually more valuable than increasing your own turn meter. This is just absolutely god tier in terms of stopping the enemy from ever getting a turn. It is so, so good. And she does this just incredibly well. So that makes her very worthwhile in my opinion. Again, you do run into that reaction problem though, which is why she could not make the top 10 anymore. I do see her used quite a lot. But yeah, she can't quite reach the top 10 in my opinion because of that. Next up then, we have an interesting champion here who is good for one thing and one thing only, but she does it really well. I almost put her in the top 10. I've left her here at, what is this, 13? Maybe she should go higher. Dark Elhain. She's in here for one thing really and one thing only, which is to counter Torment. Possibly also like Gurgo the Augur, who's another Void Legendary who can freeze, right? But she counters freeze champions, instantly removes any freeze debuffs on this champion, replaces them with increased crit rate, increased crit damage, and strengthen whenever someone places freeze on this champion. And then whenever this champion or an ally receives freeze, she gets turn meter fill and instantly activates Death's Majesty, which is her AoE, which gives her increased attack, and then she attacks all enemies. And this smacks. So basically, you build her, she doesn't need any speed, she doesn't really need much HP or defense or anything like that. You just build her with a butt ton of attack. you can actually leave her, because she's going to give herself crit rate. You can leave her crit rate a bit low, just crank up her attack and her crit damage super high. You can actually even have a team with multiple Dark Elhanes. You put them in against something like a Tormin, and she becomes a Death's Majesty machine gun, and she will just completely mow down the enemy team with just this overwhelming barrage of AoEs, which is so cool. It's a very specific, it's a very niche thing, but he's one of the toughest Void legendaries to fight, especially for newer players. And she gives you a hard counter as a free login reward, which I think is amazing. So she's well worth using. Next up is a champion I've been using a good bit recently, actually, who's really jumped up the meta, in my opinion, and that's Maneater, actually. I think this guy's great for PvP. We often think of him as just a clan boss champion, but for PvP, he's amazing. Ancient Blood, unkillable, and block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns. This is great. So the reason I use him is specifically really to counter a couple of the most annoying defensive champions to fight in Arena in the game that are end game, like the best defensive end game. So number 1, Candrafon. I use him to counter Candrafon. This is the lesser one. But Candrafon, he's Force Affinity. I use a Magic Affinity Nuker. I use Foley. So I can weak hit Candrafon. Candrafon's taking less damage when he's under a Perfect Veil. Perfect Veil reduces his damage anyway, and he's Force Affinity. So sometimes I just can't kill that Candrafon, and then he comes in and does this massive AoE smack that can just wipe out my team, right? So that's a big problem for me. Guess what? Put in Maneater. We're unkillable. We're all sitting there at 1 HP laughing. He can't kill us and we're good. The other reason that this has become very valuable is Leorius. Arguably the best AoE nuker. He's up there with Trunda, but Leorius, what does he do? Is he gets unkillable. So he becomes unkillable. You can't kill him. And then he's also immune to all CC. So this is very difficult, right? It's very difficult to actually beat this guy in the arena, because he will stop at 1 HP and you can't kill him. Yeah, you can get a buff strip in and then kill him, but oftentimes in terms of your speed tune, you can't actually manage to nuke him down to 1 HP, then strip his buff, then hit him again. It's very difficult. I found that just a Maneater, throw Maneater in, and he completely counters it. Again, he absolutely rips through your team. He does this ridiculously massive smack, and you're all sat at 1 HP laughing, and you're good. So Maneater, I think, is actually really good for that. I use him a lot at the moment. And then finally, the last one before we get into the top 10 is Aboro. I think Aboro is great. So good. I think she's completely underrated as well. One of my favorite looking champions in the game. I think it's so badass. I love the mysterious vibe with the huge hat. It's great. But she comes in, increased crit rate, crit damage on herself for 2 turns, attacks 1 enemy, Perfect Veil on her if she crits, and she will. She gets Revive on Death when she's under Perfect Veil. Then she's got another smacking single target hit, which can steal all buffs and transfer all debuffs. And then her A1 can do AoE attacks, or can also place decreased defense. It can do a couple of different things. But basically, I think that in terms of epics, I think she is the best single target smack in the epic category. I think she's the best one because she gives herself these buffs, right? So you can build her with lower crit rate. And she gives herself a Perfect Veil, which keeps her safe from a lot of enemy teams as well. And she can just delete people. She just absolutely deletes people with massive single target hits. So I think if you're looking for a single target nuker, I think Aboro is pretty much the way to go. So she's number 11. Going into the top 10 then. Let us go into the top 10. So in 10, I have to give a huge shout out to my boy YST for discovering this or really bringing it to attention. Canelia actually comes into the number 10 spot. She's amazing, guys. She's so good. Let me see. So here we go. Can you guys see this on the screen? You can. So YST, check this out, guys. This video has not got enough attention, but yeah, she's super good. She's basically budget Kymar. What she does, she comes in and she has a 100% chance to put sleep on all enemies for 1 turn. This is like the reaction accessory counter. So you come in, Arbiter boosts your team, gives you increased attack. Canelia puts people to sleep. Then you have someone that doesn't actually physically hit, like a Rian the Conjurer or a Madame Ceres, debuff the enemy team, and then you have a really slow nuker, like a 170 speed nuker who's just chilling. The enemies all miss their turn because they're asleep. They wake up, reaction has fallen off, and then your nuker comes in and hits and is actually able to kill them through reaction. So Prince Kymar, obviously, second best non-void legendary in the game, in my opinion. You can check out my legendary tier video, top 10 legendaries if you want as well. But yeah, she basically is a budget version of that. She's a budget version of that, which is extremely valuable for Arena. He does a buff strip as well, which she doesn't. So you might have to run a really fast buff stripper with her as well. But look at her base stats, guys. 109 base speed. She's very easy to get up to that high speed to speed tune with Arbiter, or potentially to speed tune with Arbiter and a buff stripper, to have them all going quickly and just, yeah, lock out the enemy team, and then having a slow nuker. I want to show this to you. I left the comment here. Watch this. This is like such a cool thing as well. Yeah, so watch what happens here.
All right.
Yo, do you guys see that? So it happened against him, so Cornelia. But look at this. This is her, the passive effect of this. Whenever an enemy loses sleep placed by this skill, 50% chance, that goes up to a 70% chance to replace it with fear for 1 turn instead. But watch what happened. Basically, you've got these champions, right? That,
Boom.
Look at this. Look at this. So Riho Bone Spear, Void Legendary, we saw Skytouch Shaman in the previous clip. She comes in, she removes all debuffs, and then places block debuffs. So against 99.9% of champions in the game, you know, it removes all the debuffs and no more debuffs goes on and you're stopped. Cornelia, because she replaces sleep with fear, what she does is Riho comes in, she removes all debuffs, and then she's going, okay, I'm going to place block debuffs, and Cornelia's like, no, wait, stop. Before you place that block debuffs, I see you remove my sleep. Have the fear first. Okay, fear is on. Now you can place block debuffs. So you have this hilarious situation where this Trunda now has fear. I think watch this, like just for this clip. Look, she just missed her turn because of that fear, because of Cornelia. He would have died, would have got 1 shot. So yeah, check out YST's video for more info on that. But Cornelia, she's amazing. I think she's so underrated. So good. Next up then, Demitha. I put her at number 9. I think Demitha's like a mini Wither, the Crowned. I think Demitha's really good. I use her in my team for really tanky teams. So she's got good speed as well. Crank her up to move fast. She comes in, block damage on all allies, and a continuous heal. Then Light of the Deep, you can check out my Demitha video if you want to see more about her. I was mostly showing her on Hydra, but you can also see her in action in my Tag Arena video as well. But she extends ally buffs, reduces ally debuffs, and then does a huge heal. This is on a 3-turn cooldown too, so she's just cycling through her stuff. Basically, she's in there to keep your team alive. You do have to watch out, like endgame arena. There are a couple of champions, so Mountain King and Rotos in particular stand out as 2 champions that can hit through block damage and still kill you, but most champions get flummoxed by this. So like she's really good against Candrafon, for example. She just blocks all his damage, which is fantastic. So all that sort of stuff. So Demitha, really strong. In the 8th place, I am going to be placing Umbral Enchantress. I think Umbral is fantastic, specifically for this. AoE attack, she's void, so this will always work. 100% chance to provoke for 2 turns, so you can lock out the enemy team for 2 whole turns, and she gets unkillable as well, so they can't kill her. So you can completely control the enemy team, lock them out, and basically win the fight. Like you've provoked them for 2 turns. You've basically won the fight. This is amazing. The downside, the reason I have her ranked a bit lower here on this list is look at that base speed, 93. She's painfully slow. So yeah, basically in order to make her quick enough to actually land this provoke on the enemy team in good order, like to get her speed tuned up is very gear intensive. So to get her speed all that way up and her accuracy all that way up, it's tricky to do. But if you do that, she's obviously, you know, it's one of the easiest ways to win in the arena. It's very viable, very strong. You would need a stripper as well to go alongside her to make sure that that it works. Next up then is a champion I actually mentioned in the previous little bit here, and that is Barbarians. In the Barbarians, the champion's Barbarians. No, the champion is Skytouch Shaman. Skytouch Shaman. I want to give a huge shout out to Albie on my Discord, who is the one who called this out. I was completely sleeping on her. She was completely off my radar, under my radar. And Albie is the one who called it up for me, and I'm actually working on building her up right now. So big shout out to Albie, and big shout, you can say thank you to Albie too, because it's thanks to him that you know how good she is. Skytouch Shaman, nobody's talking about her anymore. Game changer in arena. You can attack so many teams you usually have to skip. She counters Tormin, Countess Lix, Leorius, and Mashald. Have her in immunity, speed tune with my Arbiter. She goes before Kymar or your Cornelia and before your Nuker, right? Something like that potentially. What does she do? Basically, Immortal Skies removes all debuffs from all allies and puts block debuffs and revive on death on all allies for 2 turns. So it's a triple whammy, right? So against a Torment, she removes all the debuffs, then puts block debuffs, so Torment freezes are stopped. Mashald, True Fears removes all of those, stops those. And the revive on death, what does this do? This is what protects you from Leorius, right? This is what protects you from Canderfon, that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, they will smack you, they will kill you, but you just pop up back to life again, which is amazing. 102 base speed is also decent, so you can build her quick enough to be speed tuned with your team to pull this off. So yeah, I think Skytouch Shaman is amazing. She also does a butt ton of healing, yeah? Butt ton of healing, but really we're bringing her in for this, which is to counter those champions. And it's very difficult, right? Riho Bonespear, we mentioned her in the Canelia clip. She's a legendary that does it, but yeah, do you have a Void legendary? Probably not. Void Epic, 10 times, not even 10 times. It's like 100 times more achievable. How much more achievable is that to avoid Lego? It's got to be 100, 1,000 times more achievable. It's something ridiculous like that. Okay, next up in 6th place, we have in the Knights Revenant, a fantastic AoE nuker, and that is Skullcrown. She's the queen of the mid-game arena. Brings you a really nice speed aura for arena, which is actually quite useful. I run her in my meme team, the reason being she's like a mini Leorius, right? Unkillable whenever her health drops low, and then all of her attacks are AoE, right? All of her attacks are AoE. So what do? I have Skullcrown really, really, really slow. I have her with no speed, just really high attack and crit damage, and retaliation gear. Or you could put her in avenging gear. Retaliation, I think, is a 35% chance to counterattack whenever hit. Avenging is a 45% chance to counterattack whenever crit. So yeah, you can choose whichever one you've got. I don't have any avenging gear, so I put her in retaliation instead. But yeah, she just churns out massive AoE damage, really strong, even in late game arena. If you're going up against a team that doesn't have any crowd control, right? They won't be able to lock her down, and she's just going to be counterattacking, and there's nothing they can do to stop it, which is so good. So yeah, Skullcrown's amazing. Obviously, earlier in the game, you would run her as just a normal nuker with speed, and then yeah, she probably just killed him anyway. And then, hey, even if you're unlucky and the enemy team is faster than you, she still gives you a chance to still win the fight. So she's super good. Skullcrown, I think she's amazing. Now, I think the best AoE nuker in the epics section, though, overall, I give slightly the edge to Magnar. I think Magnar is incredible. Obviously, great base stats. He's a HP-based nuker, so he's a lot easier to keep alive than the other nukers. And this move, Percussive Pound, hits insanely hard, guys. Insanely hard. It hits twice on enemies that don't have HP burn, which would be basically all the time. Damage based on HP. So the way the people describe it is that he hits as hard as Trunda. He has these insanely high multipliers, but obviously Trunda gets the extra, 50% damage from increased attack. He doesn't have that, but yo, guess what? That's still an absolutely clobbering hit. That is so strong. And yeah, because he's an epic, he's very easy to build out, right? Just crank his speed a bit higher. Not too high, 170-ish is fine. Then crank his HP, his crit rate up to 100%, crit damage as high as you can, HP as high as you can. And he'll actually live through some enemy hits, and he smacks insanely hard. So I think he's the easiest to build, and arguably the best epic nuker in the game. Skullcrown does something different, but similar. Going in then to number 4. In 4th place, I have, drum roll please, in the Sacred Order Cardinal, who has seen a resurgence in the game. So Cardinal is all about the memes, right? Redemption, revives all dead allies, and boosts their turn meter to max, which means that, it's not full. Max is better than full. There's like specific wording in the game. It's quite weird. Max basically means that your team members will all take their turns straight after Cardinal, basically no matter what, okay? That is what is going to happen. When she revives them. So you put her in with like someone like a Madame Ceres or something like that can strip buffs and put decreased defense. You put her in then with a couple of nukers as well. Have them all be really squishy. They all die and she just revives them, and then they all go boom, boom, boom and wipe out the enemy team. Terrible on defense. It's very easy to counter this with block revive, or just being smart, like bombs will counter her as well these days, stuff like that. But on offense, it just gives you so many free wins. So I think it's incredible. She is running the Stone Skin set nowadays. So Stone Skin basically makes her immune to damage, immune to debuffs, for like 1 or 2 turns at the start of the fight, depending if you've got 4 or 6 pieces. You only need 4 pieces of Stone Skin. Doesn't even need to be good Stone Skin gear. It can be absolute trash Stone Skin gear. It doesn't matter. put her in that. She can be buff stripped, but there's a 50% chance she resists it. If you give her stone skin gear with lots of resist and like a resist banner, she can just resist the buff strip and you're fine. She's the only thing she'd be weak to then in that case is, again, block revive champions or bombs. With enough resistance, she can live through the bombs as well, though. So, yeah, very, very good option for cheesing that arena. And then, guys, we're moving into the top 3. And these top 3, I think, are really special. These are the ones that you can see very often in endgame teams, though one of these champions is very underrated. In third place is a champion I don't have. And also honorable mention here to Rian the Conjurer, who basically is a free-to-play version of Madame Sarah. I mean, it takes a long time to get Rian in Doom Tower normal, but you could be like me. Obviously, I'm this far into the game. I've got Rian. Never got a Madame, right? What does she do, though? AoE buff removal, decrease attack, and decrease defense on all enemies for 2 turns. Then she even has a second AoE attack, which can steal buffs from the target, puts block debuffs on all allies if you steal a buff, and true fear on enemies who've buff stolen. So she's doing some really good crowd control. But she's got great base stats, but it's mostly about Midnight Rituals what makes her so good. Stripping the enemy team of buffs, decrease attack and defense makes them more vulnerable to nuking and really reduces the damage they can do back to you as well. So yeah, she's just a top tier arena, one of the classic OG arena champions, and she has stood the test of time. So strong for all this stuff. Now there's some better champions like Romantu and things like that, but for epics, Madame is like way up there. She's so good. I see her all the time in arena still. In second place then is a champion which I was completely sleeping on. I was wrong about this champion. I even have this champion built up. I have this champion booked at level 60 and everything, but I wasn't using them. And this champion is insane. This champion has the 3rd best move for arena in the game. The 3rd best move. That champion is Basher. That's right, Basher. Completely underrated, completely under the radar, does not get the attention he deserves. Okay, so he has ally HP in all battles, don't care about that. He can put weaken, yeah, don't care about that. AoE block buffs 4 times at random, no, don't care about that. Stinging Blast, the 3rd best arena move in the game. Attacks all enemies, increases the cooldown of all of the target skills by 2 turns. Right, Warlord does this but better, and Yumiko does this but better. Like the 2 best Void legendaries in the game for PvP. This is insane. So why is this so good? This hits through block debuffs. This hits through immunity set. This hits through stone skin set. The only way for the enemy team to stop this happening is if they can resist it. So you get your Basher, you make him really fast, and you give him really high accuracy. If he gets a stinging blast off on the enemy team, like at the start of the fight, you've basically won the fight. Guys, you've basically won the fight. All their skills will be on 2-turn cooldown. So you've got 2 turns where they can only A1, and you can just run all over them. This is insanely good. It's so good, and I was completely sleeping on him. I was completely wrong. I did not appreciate how insanely good this is. Now, the downside of Basher, he does have a big downside, which is base stats. 95 speed is really slow, and he has 0 accuracy baseline as well. So getting his speed high and getting his accuracy high is actually quite tough. That's one of the big things those legendaries bring that he doesn't. They also increase the cooldowns by more, and they do other stuff too, obviously. This is all he does. He's like the one-trick pony for this, but this is insane. I've seen people start to use him a bit more. I have to give a huge shout out to Mac-chan. Oh, I actually don't think... hang on. Mac-chan is the one who opened my eyes to this. I was watching some of his videos. Obviously, top-tier PvP creator. Mac-chan, here he is. I'm not sure which video. You can see I've been watching like nearly all of them. Yeah, I'm learning from Mac-chan. But he came in and he was pointing out how good Basher is. And I had not realized, but now I do. So there you go, Basher. Don't sleep on Basher. Basher might be here giving you a bunch of free wins against nearly every sort of team, and you didn't even realize. So I need to re-gear my Basher something serious, because I need to get him into my teams. And then finally, the number 1. I think he might fall off actually hard here, but I think he's still number 1 right now, and that's Vogoth. I'm going to give Vogoth the edge ever so slightly. Vogoth does one thing, and he does really one thing only, which is this passive. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by half of the damage received, and he heals himself as well, which is just hilarious. The Very simple. Here's what you do. This is all you do. You just put Vogoth in, you crank his HP up insanely high, and that's it. He doesn't need attack, defense, speed, crit rate, crit damage, resistance, accuracy. He doesn't really need anything else. Now, you could give him some resistance and some defense and even a bit of speed, even a bit of crit rate if you wanted to. But he doesn't really need anything else. That's it. You just put him in here, and suddenly he opens up a whole bunch of defensive options for your team. He helps you live through those massive nukes coming at you. He just makes it a pain in the ass, right? He's just this massive HP battery for your team. Keeps healing your team. He gets killed, then he gets revived back up, and he's doing it all over again. He's just this punching bag that keeps your team alive. So it's that ease of access and that versatility that makes him, in my opinion, so good. That's what makes him just about number one. Now, the reason I say he might fall off a lot is as more and more people finish the Ramantu mission, I think Ramantu completely hard counters him, right? Because Ramantu comes in, and Ramantu puts that block passive skills on all enemies. So yeah, this is the issue, is that everyone ultimately will eventually have a Ramantu. Certainly for pushing high-end arena, people will have Ramantu, and they might add more champions in future that can block passive skills as well. And if you get those champions, yeah, if you block Vogoth's passive skills, he basically turns into this big, massive HP chap just standing there doing absolutely nothing. I think that Ash did a video on this recently where he looked at Vogoth in a curing set. So yeah, you can check out that video as well. I don't have a video on Vogoth myself, but he put him in a curing set, which is 20% more healing. And yeah, you just slap him into the arena, and you see what this guy could do for you. Again, I see him a lot at the moment. You're going to see him a lot pushing up in the arena, pushing up in tag arena. I think he's not going to work so well, like I said, late game because Ramantu. But way up until the point where you get Ramantu, which, you know, for most players, that's 2+ years into the game. Vogoth is number one. So there you go. That is my tier list right now. This video ended up being way too long. I'm so sorry. I wanted to be like a 20-minute video. Oh well, there we go. Talk too much, but hopefully you got some interesting tips there, some interesting champion ideas. There's obviously a lot of honorable mentions I didn't cover that can do the same or similar job to these champions. I just picked the ones that I feel like overall probably do it the best for their individual roles, and hopefully gave you lots of ideas for the different sorts of champions and strategies that you can use to succeed in the arena. Yeah, thank you for watching, everyone. Give it a thumbs up as well if you liked it. All that, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And I will see you next time. Jedi Master, Nubraids, away. Goodbye.